All right. So let us call the meeting to order. Did you get that?
Yes. Chair, would you like me to call the roll?
Please call the roll.
I will, gladly. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Joanne Adams. Joanne, can you hear us? I see that you're online. Okay, we'll move down the list and perhaps come back. Claire Batt.
Claire Batt, present.
Thank you, Claire. Good morning.
Good morning.
Holly Bloodworth.
This is Holly Bloodworth. Good morning. I'm here.
Wonderful. Mike Bowling. Mike, can you hear us? We'll come back to Mike. Alvis Johnson.
Elvis Johnson here reporting for duty.
Good morning, Alvis. All right, David Karam.
David Karam is present.
Wonderful. We hear you loud and clear. Patrice McCrary.
Good morning, Patrice McCrary here.
Good morning, Patrice. Cody Polly Johnson is absent today. Sharon Porter Robinson.
Good morning. I'm here.
Good morning, Sharon. Lee Todd.
Good morning, Lee Todd. I'm here.
Good morning. Lou Young.
Lou Young, present.
Good morning, Lou.
Good morning.
Lieutenant Governor Jacqueline Coleman.
I'm here.
Good morning. There you are, with a special guest. Wonderful.
With my special assistant, yeah.
That's right. Great to see you both. CPE President Aaron Thompson.
I'm here.
Okay, and
Yeah.
great, thank you, Dr. Thompson. And Allison Sloan.
Allison Sloan, present. Good morning.
Good morning, Allison. Okay, we'll go back to Joanne Adams. Joanne, are you able to hear us now? I see that you unmuted, but we can't hear you. Okay, what about Mike Bowling? Mike, are you able to hear us now?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Fantastic.
I'm present.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, Chair, we have a quorum.
Chair Karam, we can't hear you. Is your microphone muted?
His microphone does look like it's muted. Just as a reminder, you're welcome to mute your microphone and in fact encouraged to, but please make sure that anytime you do need to speak, you take it off mute. That kind of is important.
Chair Karam, with your permission, I'm going to go ahead and speak as the chair for the introduction to the meeting until we work out the technical details. Commissioner Brown and I are both available by text message if you need us. Welcome back. For those of you who are joining us virtually today, to the members of the board, we really appreciate your diligence in working through this virtual meeting today. It has been complicated, but your persistence has been very helpful, and we thank you for that. We also welcome all of those who are viewing the meeting remotely today. For those of us here at the department, we want to assure everyone that we are actively maintaining social distance here on site, and many thanks to the team, the tech team here at the department, for providing opportunities for us to conduct this meeting in a timely way. I do have a few notes about conducting virtual meetings. As a reminder, this meeting shall still comply with the requirements of the Open Meeting Act. Accordingly, the public may view the meeting via a link provided in the advertised agenda, which can be found online at the KBE website. KBE members must ensure their video is streaming and they can be seen throughout the duration of the meeting. KBE members may mute their microphone when not talking. However, all discussions must be broadcast to the public. Therefore, board members should be sure your microphones are not muted when you speak. For any items that require a vote, a roll call vote will be necessary today to record a vote of each board member. Please remember to mute or turn off your cell phones or other mobile devices. Before we turn to the next item on our agenda, the actual first item on our agenda, I'd like to ask Commissioner Brown for a COVID-19 update for the board.
Thank you, Vice Chair Young. I did want to give just a brief update on what everyone's thinking about the COVID-19 issue. I know that's not what this meeting is about, as we're getting on with the business of the state that this board needs to do, but just briefly wanted to recap where we are related to education. As everyone knows, at the request of Governor Beshear, all 170 school districts complied with Governor Beshear's request last week to close, and all but 4 closed Monday, March 16th, and the remaining 4 closed beginning yesterday for at least 2 weeks, and the majority of those, when you tack on their spring break, for 3 weeks. I want to thank all the superintendents and local boards of education for their willingness to do this in this time. They acted fast. And then related to that, as of last week, we only had 83 districts that were approved NTI districts, or non-traditional instructions. I am pleased to report today that as of a few minutes ago, we have 172 of 172 school districts who are operating NTI or have applied to operate NTI and will be operating NTI, the latest probably beginning next week. They're waiting for final board approval, but we are received the last application, I think, a few minutes ago. This is amazing work that our school districts are doing to ensure there is a continuity of some type of instruction during this time. And I just want to thank all of our administrators, teachers. There are all kinds of pictures and videos out there from yesterday about student or teachers going out and teachers' aides going out in buses to deliver these materials. And the only thing I would want to say about that is everything was good, but there needs to be a little more social distancing in some of those pictures. So I actually went to Lowe's the night before last. I bought a 6-foot piece of PVC pipe, and I've been walking around the department for those that are still here to sometimes educators also need some visual aid, and so I've been reminding folks of what 6 feet looks like. So please keep that in mind.
I'm back on.
David is back on. Good. Thank you. Just a few updates on COVID-19, then we're going to get to the business today. Districts have previously, the statute says districts may have 10 days of NTI, non-traditional instruction. We are telling districts that even though statutorily they can only have 10, the General Assembly or the governor through an executive order will extend that. So some of them have already used their 10 because of flu and some weather earlier in the year. We have given them the instruction that they can feel assured that we will honor that as we move forward, and we'll be getting relief either through the General Assembly or through an executive order. We have received a USDA waiver to allow non-congregate feeding. We have the majority of our districts are participating in utilizing the summer food service provisions to go out and deliver food, breakfast and lunch to districts. We don't have all of our districts online yet, but we are working with them. Some that have never participated, we're trying to get them online with that. We want to thank the Kentucky Department of Agriculture for their assistance in getting that waiver. I anticipate filing a waiver with the U.S. Department of Education as early as Friday to take advantage of a waiver for Kentucky's assessment and accountability for this school year. We expect an announcement by the U.S. Department of Education tomorrow about the expedited waiver process. That's why some states have gone ahead and announced that they are canceling tests. I want to make sure that we get all of the information from the U.S. Department of Education first. That's coming to us. The Council of Chief State School Officers has been assisting us in D.C. to promote an expedited waiver process. The U.S. Department of Education has responded. I'm going to be taking full advantage of that on behalf of Kentucky as we move forward. I announced this week the formation of an Education Continuation Task Force. This task force will meet Monday. We'll meet weekly until there is not a need to meet. This task force is designed to bring all the education K-12 partners, P-12 partners in the room together virtually to discuss issues that are arising, new issues every day about non-traditional instruction and how we can assist our school districts as we enter into this new normal for a period of time in our country. The goal is to get just-in-time information to districts about resources that may be available, or maybe there are resources that school districts in Eastern Kentucky are using and school districts in Western Kentucky are not aware of that technology. It's to bridge those gaps, have the folks virtually in the room that represent with all of our K groups so that we can get information to school districts. I'm also going to convene next week the Commissioner Student Advisory Council. I want to hear from our students on that council about how this is affecting them and ideas that they have. And no offense to any other advisory council, I have found that advisory council has some of the best ideas that I've ever heard. So I look forward to meeting with them. We want to make sure we're taking care of our kids' social, emotional needs in addition to their educational needs the best we can during this time. And then finally, I've tasked every KDE Associate Commissioner to brainstorm and find all of the dates, the due dates, things that we require in statute that will be hard to deliver for a school district in this time of meeting virtually. And we then will create a list of for the governor or the General Assembly, but most likely the governor, to issue an executive order for any relief that may be required for statutorily defined due dates or other matters. And of course, these things are changing all the time. So that's just a brief update. I want to thank the team here at KDE who have an amazing staff here, but most importantly, the folks that are in the school districts doing this every day, day in, day out. They're thinking creatively. They are really trying to serve kids during this time, and I'm honored to work alongside them during this time. So thank you.
So is the next item then, Kevin, to move to Dean Wilhoit?
Yes. Actually, we have the report from the, no, that's correct. Yes, moving to Gene Wilhoit is the next item.
That is an action item, and so Gene, let us turn the meeting over to you. Does that work?
Yes, thank you.
Can everyone see me? I hope I'm on. I'm Gene Wilhoit, a man about Kentucky for several years, and it's good to be with this board. I have to say, first of all, how impressed I am with the composition of this board. We're all over Kentucky watching you closely and expecting great things for the state of Kentucky, in particular, the children that we serve. So today, what I want to do is walk through a conversation with you, and we'll do this remotely. If the teachers and the kids across the state are doing this every day, we can do it too. So I look forward to the conversation, and we will have some pauses, but I do think it's important that everyone have an opportunity to express themselves during this conversation. What we hope to end up with is something that we can take back and feed back to the board in terms of a set of characteristics that you would want in the next commissioner. So with that, I'd like to begin with this next slide. I've read your vision statement. I was impressed by your words that you said in that, empowered and equipped for each and every student in the Commonwealth. You stated in your mission that you wanted to work with the 172 districts, but you used the word steep trajectory for improving outcomes for students. And then you listed a number of initiatives that you were going to pay particular attention to. But what I'd like to do first is, all of you are entering your service on this board, and all of you are going to enter into a relationship with an individual called a commissioner. And I'd like to begin the meeting, and this will be helpful to me in terms of translating your words into something that we can submit to the public. But I'd like you to think at a very personal level. All of you share that vision that I just quoted, and all of you have worked on that mission. But I think each of you bring to this board a particular interest, and I'd like you to sort of reflect on that for a moment. Given that you're going to hire a new commissioner, given you're going to work together as a board member with other individuals on this board, what's your personal ambition? When you leave this board after your time of service, what would you like to see different or advanced in the Commonwealth of Kentucky because you've served on this board and been a partner in it? So I'm going to call a roll because we're not in a room together and can't be as spontaneous as normal, but I'll just call them off because I wrote the names of all the board members down. We'll just go in this order. The first person I have is Lee Todd. Good morning, Lee. You're going to have the shortest time to reflect.
Thank you, Gene. I really appreciate your playing this role. It's very important to us. I think the thing that I would like to see is an analysis of what's happening in the different districts, and are there some that are exceeding expectations because they're performing better than you might expect them to do. Try to understand why that is the case and see if we can't take whatever that behavior is and populate it throughout the entire state. I think anytime you have processes going on, you want to be able to have major impact. I don't think it's time to invent something new and different that we haven't done before and try it out as an experiment. I think we should look for some things that are working and find out why and see if we can't get those to span across the entire state. So that's one of my thoughts.
Great. So this idea of building on successes rather than sort of looking at those that haven't achieved as well. Those folks might be real partners with districts that are struggling. So, all right, thanks, Lee. The next person I have is Lieutenant Governor Coleman and her assistant.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I appreciate this question a lot. You know, I'm an ex officio member of the board, but what I would like to see us work towards is obviously creating every opportunity that we can for our students across the state, and for those opportunities to be equitable, and for those opportunities to lead to children being able to create transformational change in their own lives and their families' lives.
Fantastic. Yes. We're going to share these comments as they come up. Sharon Robinson.
Thank you. Thank you for calling on me, and thank you for doing this great service for the board. It's really a joy to have this opportunity to work with you again.
Yes.
And this is a really good question. As I think about what I've spent a lifetime working on, I would just love to see Kentucky advance its capacity to produce a reliable workforce in education that is truly qualified in every school district across the state. I think that's going to require a lot of collaborative work with a lot of different sectors in the education community in the state, but without a reliable workforce in the education enterprise, we're not going to reach our goals, the goals that we have for our students.
Thank you, Sharon. Good to hear your voice again. Lou Young.
Thank you, Gene. I really appreciate that question too. A really good provocative way for us to start the conversation. Thanks to my fellow board members for your responses. That's primed the pump for me as I think about my response. In our mission statement, when we talk about each and every learner in Kentucky Public Schools, that's the heartthrob for me, this kind of human-centered aspiration on behalf of every child in Kentucky Public Schools. And like Lieutenant Governor Coleman, that is an equity message for me that is really important. And public schools all around this nation have done a great job with some kids for a long time. I think that in the next 30 years post-CARA, Gene, we need to be thinking about how we can, in fact, ensure that every child, children of poverty, children from any marginalized population, has the opportunity to learn at high levels and translate that into a good life for his or her family as we move forward. So really keeping the student-centered focus in this work as we move forward matters to me.
Appreciate that comment. David Karam. I'd like to call you Senator still.
And if you haven't unmuted Chair Karam, please do.
When I leave the board, I would like to know that we have carefully selected the best possible commissioner of education that we could come up with. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
And then I would like that the commissioner to understand the importance of the Rose decision and the messages of the Rose decision, that every child in this Commonwealth is entitled to a quality education. And I would hope that the commissioner could almost recite some of the major components of the Rose decision that really lay a fabulous groundwork for how to get kids to where they need to be in this Commonwealth. So since I was living through the Rose decision, I think that's such an important message. And then our primary role is to get the best possible commissioner. So when I leave, I hope that that's what happens.
Thank you. Holly Bloodworth?
I think, I believe that teachers are the most important factor in a child's education. And so I want a commissioner that really values teachers, that really gives them the support they need and honors that importance, that make sure that the training is there and the knowledge is there to help them help their students. More than anything, I think the comment that I get from teachers when we talk about equity and closing achievement gaps is the phrase, if I knew what to do, I would do it. So I think we need a commissioner that has a lot of knowledge in that area, that's willing to help teachers develop those skills and the resources to meet the needs of their students.
Thank you. Patrice, good to hear your voice too today.
It is absolutely wonderful seeing you again, Gene. I spent a lot of time with Gene in my year as Kentucky Teacher of the Year, so it's fun to see and hear him again. I'm going to say they took my answer. Everything that has been said has crossed my mind throughout this process. I'm actually going to piggyback a bit more on what Lee said. I strongly believe that a lot of the answers to our issues in Kentucky can be found in a classroom right here in Kentucky. We have absolute pockets of greatness going on. We need to find those pockets of greatness, and we need to replicate those throughout our state to develop a sense of fairness, to develop a sense of equity. I also am eager to see a commissioner who allows opportunity for all students, for our struggling students as well as our high achieving students. The opportunities have to be available for all children. And I guess I would finally say professional development. We've been limping along as far as professional development goes. We almost have several years of teachers who have not benefited from some of the opportunities that many educators had during the years where professional development was provided on an as needed basis. So those are some of the things I would like to see taking place across the Commonwealth. I love this place and I love the kids and the teachers in this place. So I'm going to do everything I can to make us a shining example of what education truly is.
Thank you, Patrice. Allison Slone.
Hi. This is a great question, and as the first current public education teacher to serve on the State Board of Education, thank you, Governor and Lieutenant Governor. I'd like to just say that I think my goal as a member of this board is to build teacher voice and equity across the state. Teachers want to feel heard and valued, to be treated as professionals. The work I hope to do is to provide info straight from the classroom. I'm in my classroom today, and take the work we do on the board back to the classroom, to the teachers. And of course, I want to build up teacher leadership from the classroom to give value to that. So that others, after my appointment is over, will fill this seat for many years to come. While as a board member, though, some of the issues that teachers are talking about, that they have concerns about, I'd like to address those. Two of the main ones being behavior of our students and how we address that in our schools appropriately, and also literacy of our students. And those are my two big issues that I'd like to address with teacher leadership and being that voice. And I'm very honored to be here to be able to do that.
Great. Thank you. Alvis Johnson.
Yeah, Dean, thanks for the question. You know, I began by saying for a long time, our state has lingered in a position of mediocrity. And with the opportunity to hire a new commissioner, I certainly want to see a commissioner who began his educational career down in the trenches. Someone who just really worked his way up from the classroom to administration to the current position he's in now. Because I believe only then can the man at the top know what is truly needed for those down, for the students down in the classroom. So I want to see a commissioner who really began his career as a teacher, and not only as a teacher, but as a teacher who was able to work with all different socioeconomic groups, all different races, so you would have experience of knowing what this is all about. You know, really and truly, when I leave this board, I would like to see us close the equity gap between all different races and all different socioeconomic groups that we have in the state of Kentucky. And I know we've got some students who are we've got some areas in the state that are doing things well, but can we replicate that on a statewide basis and help those students that truly need us, who are looking for us to provide some leadership with them that will help them climb up out of the hole they're in. And I would like to see us hire a commissioner who has a vast experience in curriculum development, so he would have the expertise to lead in setting up the type of curriculum in our classrooms that we really need. You know, like everything else, true leadership began at the top. And so the commissioner that we're about to hire, I expect a lot out of him. And I know the committee that is doing the research to hire the commissioner is on top of all of these things. And so I expect the next commissioner to come in here, and I expect him to blow the doors off of the inequity group that currently exists in the state. Those are some of the things that I would like to see in our next commissioner.
Great.
And I got a whole list of things, but I'm going to stop right there. I'm not going to take.
Thanks. Claire Batt.
Well, after listening to everyone else, I have so many thoughts swirling in my head. But first of all, I want to say that looking at the problems that exist in our world today, we face many problems that are going to have to be solved by the kids who are in school today. And it's our duty to ensure that they have the critical thinking capacity, the creativity, and the ability to reflect on their actions to be able to make the decisions that they're going to face. To that end, we need a teaching force that is responsive to the individual needs of the children that are being taught, that is able to have the technical and pedagogical skill to provide the most intensive service educationally. Therefore, we have to have a commissioner and leadership down to the school level that understands that the hard work occurs in the classroom and that values the teaching staff that is placed there. That will require a change in what is done at the university level and upgrading the skill of our teachers in the classrooms. But it also will require leadership at the principal level and the superintendent level to understand that the hard work occurs closest to the kids.
Thank you. Mike Bowling.
Yes, I wanted to find a commissioner that looks at the Rose case and realizes that the reason our school system was pronounced unconstitutional was because we could prove that we had students in various districts that were not getting equal education. And unfortunately, I see a lot of that coming back again. We have very fortunate districts that have very high levels of property valuation, and we have very unfortunate districts that have very low property valuations. I feel like I'd like to have a commissioner that would come in and study the amount of money that's being paid per student, per district, and determine whether our students are actually receiving an equal education. I suspect they're not. I suspect there's a broad difference between districts in this state. And I think that we're probably 20 years past, we're probably about ready to file another action with the Supreme Court that would require that we have equalization of financing for our students. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I believe we have Joanne Adams
Joanne
back.
Adams, are you on?
I hope I'm on.
You are.
Thank you. We've been having a little technical difficulty here. As a board member, I am interested in every child in the state of Kentucky. And in keeping with what Mike just said, our children are facing lots of different needs. They're coming from different socioeconomic groups. We have a vast number of children in rural districts here. We have children who are from, who don't speak English. We have children that are facing all kinds of issues at home, from abuse to food insecurity. And I just think it's important that we focus on the whole child, that we see that children are not just given information, that they are provided an education, a broad education that will open the world up to them. We have so many children that do not have the life experiences, and we need to train our teachers. We need to educate our communities. We need to get our parents involved in making sure that children all over the state of Kentucky get a well-rounded education, that they're educated in the arts, that they are given emotional support. And I just think that it's very important we just continue to look at the whole child and remember that that's what we're here about. It's the children.
Thank you. Dr. Thompson, are you still with us, or I know you had may have had a break?
I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, I never left, actually, because they put the call off for another 45 minutes.
All right. Good for us.
Gene, I think your question is truly the question that calls me as the person who sees himself as the partner of this person we hire to get the job done. I obviously agree with everything everybody said so far, so I won't repeat it. But I will tell you that we have to approach this truly from a P20 aspect. We have to approach it looking at what's not been successful and really do a deep gap analysis to figure out the kind of inputs we need to put in. We do have money, not as much as we want, but we do. And how we use that money, I think, is crucial to how we do business. This is a higher education as well as a P12 concern. We have gaps that are growing, and we have people that are in a position whereby we don't offer up the respect that I believe we should for our educators, both P12 and higher ed. So I think it takes really, yes, an innovator and a visionary, but it also takes someone who's willing to look at what's not been successful and change it. So I hope we find someone who has the ability to partner at a really deep level, not a superficial statement level, but at a really deep level to look at how we do everything from changing teacher prep to do the things we need to do, get rid of certain sorts of requirements that may no longer hold true, but also the ability for us to operationalize together what a good professional on-time development would look like for our teachers and our leaders. So I would hope that the person you choose has the ability to partner. And yes, I do believe they should have some grassroots understanding, but I also believe they should understand leadership, not just from a change viewpoint, but from a viewpoint of innovation. And the ability that we have in this state to be innovative is clear. So I would hope, yes, we count on the history of innovation as a way to motivate us to create a new innovation for this century. So I'm looking for a good partner.
Fantastic.
And Chair Karam and Jean, if I may, the team here at the department has asked me to make sure the board remembers that we have received information from across the state around the community survey results, and Karen Dodd is here. She and Jean will coordinate a time for her to highlight that feedback, and we wanted to make sure that the audience listening knows that we have solicited this broad feedback across the state as we move forward in this conversation.
And I hope all of you have had a chance to look through that material thoroughly. It was outstanding work from the department to put that together. So what I've just heard from all of you are some really enriching thoughts about what you'd like to see in the next few years for Kentucky. Those are lofty goals, and it will take an extraordinary person to help you along the way. I'd like to just say, thinking of that conversation that you just had and listening to your peers, you're beginning to think about the kind of characteristics or attributes that the next person's going to have. And I'd like to get more specific about that as we move forward. And so let's put up that next screen. Go ahead. There we go. I hope everyone can see this. I'm going to impose something here, hopefully not too much outside perspective, but I think I share some of the concerns you, Sharon. From where I sit, I've had some opportunity to interact with learning communities around the country. And so I think for me, these are areas that you as a board are really going to have to wrestle with in the next few years. Just to make sure that I put on the table what I think are some of the things that are going to be important for a really proactive and meaningful board conversation over the next few years. And I put them in the form of questions. I don't know the answer to this. You're the ones that are going to have to answer these questions. But I think these are important things for you to think about that are emerging across the country in terms of the kinds of things that boards are going to have to take on if you're going to make the kind of changes that you just talked about. And the first one is, are we still pushing kids with a vision of, and I think Claire mentioned this in her comments, that this vision is expansive, but it's shared, challenging, and compelling. As you look at where you're going and what you're saying to folks in the state, are you sending the messages that are shared, challenging, and compelling to the people in the field? Do you need to look at those? Do you need to include not only knowledge and skills, which most state boards have done very well, but this whole issue of dispositions that students need to have and the kinds of human beings we want them to be? And this seems to be emerging, the social, emotional, and academic tie we've talked about. Another is how we begin to look at our core mission. And we've made some mistakes in recent years. We've forced our attention on teachers, on principals, on administrators, on the legislature. I think the challenge for most boards now is to not forget that, and you mentioned this in your comments, that this is really about students. It's about what they need, all students, every student. Alvis, I was struck by your comments about this need for every student to be inclusive in this education process. Lou mentioned this in her comments, and some of you others did. This is critical. We have been successful with some students. We have not, in any state in this country at this point, been able to reach those students who have been historically underserved. Another is this capacity of states and districts and schools to deliver on that vision. And that was mentioned by a couple of you, that this is about supporting teachers, but it's also about what happens when teachers interact with principals and superintendents interact, and how the State Department of Education and the Board of Education are seen as true partners in building the capacity of everyone. Another is this whole thing around teachers. So many of you mentioned. This is not going to happen. Those things you just mentioned, those dreams you have for your service are not going to happen. We know this without teachers. And the kinds of supports that are needed, not simply the professional development or professional aspect, but rethinking how teachers learn from each other, building from that knowledge base that teachers have, supporting them with technology and other financial supports that they need to become the leaders. And I do see in the future, if we don't put teachers in the lead position, they're not recipients of somebody else's thoughts. They should be the ones leading the reform. So how did you as a board begin, and as a state, begin to reshape this in that way? Another is this equity issue that was raised by three of you. How do we begin to focus very directly on those kids that need additional supports? And that may be contentious, and it may be difficult at times, because you're going to have to make some decisions that provide direct resources for those children in ways that haven't been provided in the past in order to reach those children. I put quickly in here on the assessment system, because I think in every state in the country right now, we have to really begin to think about balanced system of assessment, rewarding knowledge and skills and interaction that occurs at the local level, continuing your state role of institutional accountability, but beginning to balance the pressures of those systems. And then finally, what are we doing to gather evidence? One of the regrets I have from being commissioner in the state is that we didn't develop those partnerships with higher education institutions that could be inside this dynamic learning environment called schools, and pulling evidence out of that, making sense of it, bringing that back to this board table and trying to adjust on a continuing basis. I'm finished with my little note here, but I think overlaying that with the words that you have just spoken and with the information that came to you from the people in the field, we kind of have a basis to begin to talk. But I think to put out in front of a community some sort of request that people will respond to, we need to get a little bit more specific. And I'm suggesting this framework. As you think about this, we're going to try to capture this here for you today and be able to feed it back. But the final thing I'd like to do is, given all that you said, all the information you have in front of you, what knowledge should this person possess? And knowledge is expertise in some field gained through academic learning. What skills should they possess? In addition to that, what kind of disposition do you want this person to have? It could be a person who makes decisions rapidly. It could be a person who is collaborative. But you need to be thinking about what those are in order to fulfill the things you just said were important to you. And then finally, I think it's important that we talk about Kentucky, talk about the Commonwealth. Are there things you want in the next person that must be addressed if you're going to be successful coming into this position? I'm not going to ask you to divide those things up necessarily. We'll try to capture them as you talk. You can decide that I'm going to talk about skills, I'm going to talk about knowledge, I'm going to talk about dispositions or contextual understanding. But I'd like to get on the table now as much as we can that we can translate into some sort of statement to the public about what we want to see in the next commissioner. Now, does that make sense to everyone? If not, we could add to this conversation, but I think it might help us as we begin to narrow this down. And what we'll do is take this back, feed it back to you to make sure that it's responsive to what you say today. And we'll use some of the language that you used in your introductory comments as a context setting for this still. So you should have a document at the end of this that gives some sort of preface to the announcement, and then some more specific kinds of characteristics you want to see in the person. That helps the individual get excited about the position if they feel like they have the expertise and knowledge to do so. It also tells other folks, no, this is not something I want to take on. So, any questions about that?
Thank you, Gene. And Chair Karam, again, responding to some feedback here from the department folks. Personally, I think this quadrant approach is genius. I think this will work really well to help us frame the conversation, Gene. And when we talk about, as Claire mentioned, that we want Kentucky students to leave us possessing the knowledge, skills, and dispositions to be successful in a fairly uncertain future in the 21st century and beyond, we should be thinking in the same way about our new commissioner. So I think the framework is very helpful. The team here would like to suggest that we pause and share in very similar ways, Karen, the kind of feedback that we've received from the community so that the board actively hears and includes those comments in this framework, and then bring Gene back to help us work through the quadrants together as a team. Chair Karam, is that okay with you?
That sounds fine to me.
Thank you. So Karen, if you would.
Everybody hear me okay? I'll take that as a no. Okay. Can you hear me now? All right.
Yes.
Great, thank you. All right, you should be able to see on your screen now the results of the survey that we conducted. What was this, back in the fall?
No, it was February.
February? Okay. Seems like a long time ago at this point. We asked...
Actually, Karen, I can jump in. The survey was conducted as a result of the board's request on January 12th. If you recall from your special meeting, you directed the department to collect the feedback from the public whether it was education partners or the public in general. So the survey was actually open from January 21st and closed on February 6th. So as you can see, what you have in front of you then is the dashboard that Karen will walk through. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you, Jennifer. Right. So the first thing that we did was to ask each of you in your meeting that we had over at the mansion to fill out a survey and rank a list of characteristics or behaviors that you wanted to see in a commissioner. That list came from the CCSSO and was actually part of an evaluation that chief state officers can conduct for themselves for their evaluations with their board. So that's where that came from. And our very first question that we sent out to the public came from what came out from your responses to that. We added to that survey, what do people feel is the most important communication characteristics, and then a third question around knowledge and expertise of characteristics for the next commissioner. Now, the way that you would look at this, if you see at the very top, this band is the total number of respondents. So we had 3,642 respondents to our survey. If you go down here, these are the different constituencies. So you can see community members, district employees, and then the total number from each of those groups that responded. Now, if I scroll down a little bit, the very first question, again, this is overall, and it's shaded in blue are the top 5 responses. And I know this is really hard to read on your screen when it comes to reading this text, but at the very top overall was possesses a background in education, dedication to the improved learning outcomes of students, communicates effectively and appropriately, encourages transparency at all levels, and listens to the perspectives of others before responding.
Karen?
Yes, ma'am.
If I may, just to make a link between where Jean left us and what we see here, for example, in our quadrants, we could look at these and say, okay, possesses a background in education is a knowledge piece.
Yeah.
Communicating and listening are skills.
Yeah.
And dedication to improved outcomes and encouraging transparency would be dispositional. So again, I think that really coalesces the community feedback that we've gotten and the framework that Jean has presented for us today.
Okay. To look further, if you just wanted to know what community members were thinking, you would click on that little circle, scroll down, and you can see, again, this changes. So their top 5 is a little different than the top 5 we've had overall. So they encourages transparency at all levels as their number 1. If I were to go over to students, 123 students responded. Their number 1 was dedication to the improved learning outcomes of all students.
How about that?
Imagine that. Same thing goes for the communication question and the expertise, knowledge and expertise question. So you would be able to go through, and I believe we can send this link out to everyone after this meeting. At the very bottom, you see there was an open-ended question, and so my team came up with themes for all of those questions. So here, which one am I on? I'm on students. So in their open-ended questions, the highest theme that came out of that was knowledge of education, transparency, and willing to listen. And again, that changes. And if I go back to the very top and I just click on student again, and that gives me all of my responses again. And this has the top, well, all of the top from each of those categories. So overall, people want a commissioner from Kentucky who is not partisan and has experience in teaching. These other bubbles you can go over, you see knowledge of educational issues in Kentucky, a former superintendent, knowledge of education, et cetera. So each one of these can be clicked on or actually just hovered over to see those responses. I do want to give a shout out to KY Stats. They put this together for us, and they did a phenomenal job. We really appreciate the work that they did in helping us to get this report out Tony, is there anything you want to add?
Yes, I just wanted to add, in addition to the data that you see there on the screen, we also did collect two separate letters from constituents that were sent to us at the department, and those have also been, will be shared with you via email as well.
Okay.
Any questions?
All right, thank you.
Any questions that any of you have about this survey or how to read it? All right, we'll turn it back.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Holly Bloodworth. When I go to the link that was shared in the email, it's not interactive. How do I get to an interactive one where it'll switch for the little circles?
We'll have to resend that link. I'm not sure what was sent to you, but I'll double check that with whoever sent that to you.
Okay.
Maybe
Thank
Joette
you.
sent that out. Yeah, no problem.
Okay, let's just get into this conversation then. Remember, this is the best message you can send to the world about the qualifications you want for the next commissioner. So I will open this up, and we'll see how this goes. Anyone can jump in and begin the conversation, and I hope by the time we end, everyone has had a chance to make some comments in order for us to begin to build something that goes out directly to the public.
And for clarity, when you do speak, please state your name first. That will help us monitor things on this side.
Anyone want to begin?
I'll jump in there first. Patrice McCrary here.
All right, Patrice.
We're all eager.
Yeah, go ahead.
We're all eager. I think over and all, we saw an overwhelming response to the fact that this individual needs to be someone with an education background.
Okay.
It needs to be somebody who understands what's going on in the schools.
Okay, I'm going to push that a bit.
Okay.
Education background. Some of you said teacher. I think some of the folks on the survey said superintendent. What are you thinking there? Anyone?
Personally, Patrice McCrary still. I would like to see someone who has had some classroom experience.
All right. If anybody disagrees with anyone, speak up.
This is Elvis, and again, I'm going back to say, I think this person absolutely has to have a tremendous background in curriculum in order to facilitate what's going to happen down the line. They need a tremendous background in curriculum. And as far as, I guess we're still on knowledge, so I'll just stay there.
You can jump around wherever you want, but that's good. It is knowledge, yes.
For supporting this position, it has to be someone who is able to develop some interpersonal relationship with people at all different levels, from the higher education down to the local school superintendent, obviously to the Board of Education. I think that's critical in order for there to be a continuous exchange of ideas about what's going on in our state. I do not think he has to be someone from Kentucky. I really don't. I think we need the best person for the job, no matter where he comes from. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, I think you also, Elvis, if I'm correct, you're talking about a skill level too. A capacity to interact with multiple folks from different backgrounds and within education and outside education. Is that correct, or am I misreading that?
Unmute Alvis, please.
If I'm incorrect on that, you can correct me, Elvis. I'll just go on to someone else who wants to comment.
I'd like to offer a comment concerning this education background, classroom experience, and even background in curriculum. And I think maybe offer, we should be more specific even than that, and say we need somebody who expects knowledge about learning, and then as a skill has the capacity to create conditions where that knowledge can be brought to the benefit of all the students in the state, all learners. Because a lot of people know stuff, but they don't really know how to make that knowledge actionable, and thereby benefit students, benefit the learners. And so I think we're looking for someone who has the capacity to bring knowledge translate knowledge into behavior, and thereby into outcomes that we're looking for.
That's great. And you folks can add to any one comment that's been made, or you can bring up additional comments. And again,
This is Allison.
This is oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Let's go with Allison.
I'd like to add to the knowledge part about education background and knowledge about learning. I would like a commissioner that doesn't just have education background, but has knowledge of what's going on in our schools today, because what is happening in our classrooms looks much different today than what it did 10 years ago, even 5 and 2 years ago. I want them to be able to share experiences of being in the classroom recently, having talked to our educators and our students, and to understand what's going on today with some solutions and some ideas on how to approach those needs that we have today currently.
okay, thanks.
And then Aaron.
Aaron?
Gene, I'm not disagreeing with anything anyone has said, except I would just warn us not to just be going with a super teacher. Now, this is coming from someone who's been training chiefs of police for the last 30 years who don't have a police background, who would never want one. I think we need someone who has the essence and empathy for teachers, but I think we need someone with some deep macro leadership experience who can lead big, multiple, diverse organizations like our schools are. I think we also need to understand that this person, whomever it is, will need to also look at policy. We'll need to be able to work with, as Alvin said, a group of folk from disparate backgrounds. I think we need someone who has the ability to walk in many shoes. Now, we have to be careful that I don't think either one of these is more primary than the other. You know, we can get someone with a teaching background who may, in fact, not know how to lead these sorts of organizations. I would be putting, in my opinion, the number one item in place, someone who has a deep leadership background, organization better. Number one. Number two, someone who has the vision for Kentucky, thus needs to know at least about the history of Kentucky and where we need to go in order to have education as a primary way of developing what we need to develop in the state, whether it's workforce development or economic development, whatever sorts of dependent variables you want to use. But more specifically, along those lines, I think we need someone who truly has the heart of the student in mind, that has the ability to move from a teaching paradigm to a learner's paradigm, to be able to take our kids from wherever they're at. This is what policy and paradigm shifts, obviously, from wherever they're at to where they need to be in order to be competitive. So that would be what I would argue as some of the primary things we need for a leader.
Thank you,
Gene,
Aaron.
this is Lee. Am I okay
Hello?
to go?
Lee, yeah, we hear you, Lee.
I'm a bit hesitant to draw this comparison, but listening to some of the comments about leadership and vision, when I started at UK, the governor had a vision, and that was that UK should be a top 20 public research university. However, that was never defined. And I think we need a commissioner who can develop a vision for what we're trying to do by listening to the variety of people that they have to convince to go in that direction. It doesn't have to be their vision, it has to be a collective vision. And then repeat that vision over and over again. I heard a speech by a general one time when I was in business, and he said, being a general is like being the star at the top of a Christmas tree. The hard part is getting the lights lit all the way to the bottom. And in a commissioner's role, if you have a vision that you're collectively developed, then you've got to have strings of light that involve the teachers, the principals, the students, the different, the legislators and so forth. So you have to have a skill to be able to take that vision and work with all those constituents to bring it to a reality. When I left the job after 10 years, of course, we never made it top 20 for a variety of reasons, but somebody asked me, what are you most proud of? And I said, I can't say, it's too big a job and too many things happen here. But then I said, no, let me change that. I think I'm proud of the fact that we've changed an attitude. We have people here at least think we can compete in areas. I think that's what we need in Kentucky. We need to change an attitude, not just of the teachers and the students, but of the citizens. They have to have an attitude that we deserve to have the slope of our education to start going back up. And to change the education level is the only way we're going to create jobs and create better health care for our citizens. So I'm not sure, I kind of agree a bit with what Aaron said. I think it's leadership and vision, a real understanding of the teachers, because they're the ones, in my case, much like the faculty, they're the ones that are going to make it happen. And if they're not with you, you're not going to make it. That string has got to be lit. But it's and probably communications is one of the strongest characteristics in leadership. Would be two of the strongest characteristics I think we have to find in somebody who can carry it off.
Lee, this is Lou. Thank you for that analogy. I'm definitely going to borrow that one sometime with the Christmas tree. For my part, I really appreciate the chance to be more specific and to drill down, and I want to riff on what both Aaron and Lee have said, as well as some of my fellow board members before. For me, in the dispositional category, I want a student-centered, student-facing leader who can coalesce all the grown-ups around that focus on the whole child that Joanne mentioned, and around those 21st century skills that Claire talked about. So really thinking about the future of learning in a very different student-centered, personalized way. I also want that person in the skill category, Karen, to be someone who can relate well and respects the opinion of folks from all kinds of cultural, educational, and socioeconomic backgrounds, while navigating those important elements of policy. We understand the practicality related to policy, but it needs to be a very democratic approach to how we engage Kentucky in the next iteration of the Reform Act. And lastly for me, and I'm not sure, Karen, if you want this in skill or context, but a visionary leader, we've heard that, who can lead us bravely and boldly into the future of learning and what that entails. Let's break away from No Child Left Behind and even Every Student Succeeds Act to chart a brave new course for the future of education. I think one of the silver linings of a global pandemic for us, Jean, will be how we respond to this notion of learning continuity when we get our minds around the fact that learning happens and not always inside the walls of schools. So really leveraging what we know about digital learning, personalized learning, and supporting our teachers and educators across the system and making that happen.
And how we treat our children during these times.
Exactly, and how important they are at the center of the process.
All right. Someone else?
This is David Karam.
Gotcha.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I want to go back to, I want to chop the commissioner into two pieces. And one of the things that I want to say is that, and it sounds very simplistic, but I think it's really important. This commissioner must be 100% committed to public education and the structure of public education as is outlined in the Constitution of the state of Kentucky. And then when we communicate to the candidates, we must insist that they are first and foremost for Kentucky public education. There's lots of stuff wandering around this country right now that suggests lack of support for public education, and I want to be sure this person is 100% committed. Once we understand this person is 100% committed, then we can move to the skill set. And in the skill set, I want a person who understands team building. I don't believe there's any one person on the face of this earth that can deal with every single aspect of education. So I want this commissioner to build the highest quality team that will take into consideration all the important comments that the other board members have been saying, and as far as delivery systems, but also a person who, in building this team, then is willing to listen to the team and build on the strengths of the team itself. So that's my two-piece about the commissioner.
And David, when you mentioned,
Gene, this is Mike Bowling.
Okay, Mike, go ahead.
In what David is saying as a team builder, I would like to have somebody that has had experience with legislators and not be beholden to them, but to demand that they perform up to what they're saying out in the field to their daily subjects and the people that they're meeting with, that they all want to increase spending on education. We need new money in education, and I want a commissioner that will challenge the legislature into standing up and doing just that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other folks.
This is Joanne.
Yeah.
This is Joanne Adams.
Hi,
and
Joanne.
I would like to build a little bit on what Mike just said. We need someone who will build strong relationships to benefit public education. Mm-hmm. We want them to build those relationships not only among educators, but community leaders, among the private sector, and our legislators. And this is something that is vitally important because we're all in this together, and it does take a village. And we need a commissioner that is going to be able to communicate with all the stakeholders.
Great.
Patrice McCrary here. I would like to kind of piggyback on what was just said. I would like to see a commissioner who looks at each individual group within our state and pulls together those groups and not only shares information, but listens and reacts to what is heard during those conversations. I go back to several years ago, Gene, when you were commissioner and you had your task forces, your groups that came in. And had an opportunity to serve on the teacher forum. You listened, but that's not all you did. You listened, and then you reacted to what was done. You responded to what was done, and then you came back to us and you shared with us what was done. I think that's critical, that our stakeholders have a say in what's taking place, and they see the results of their say.
Great. Other comments?
This is Holly.
Hi, Holly.
Bloodworth. Hi. I I don't know if this is anything different really, but I think somebody that understands how systems work is important. I agree that a good listener is important. That it needs to be someone that's approachable, that it's somebody that is good at empowering others. And I think about just how empowering teachers, empowering staff, empowering others to carry out the vision is important.
Right.
And Holly, might I ask if empower and inspire might both be in that sentiment?
Yes. Yes.
Yes,
Your,
thank
I
you.
remember when I was teacher of the year, and our commissioner was Terry Holiday at that point. But I just remember the feeling of how proud I was, because he was kind of on the forefront, and just when other teachers of the year from all over the United States would look at me and say, wow, that's your commissioner. And I want that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that. And I loved that Kentucky was moving forward and inspiring other people. And I really want someone that can do that for us.
Right.
This is Allison.
I don't
This
know if
is
we-
Allison.
Allison?
I'm going to go back.
Is it okay if I go ahead?
Alvis, just
Alvin?
a second. We're going to go
Alvis?
with Allison.
Let's go Allison first and then Alvin.
I'd just like to add some comments that a colleague shared with me earlier today before our board meeting started. They were actually asked that we look for a new commissioner who could emulate the grace and dignity that our interim Commissioner Brown has shown during these times that have been difficult. His level-headedness, his calm approach to the slight crisis that we're having has been amazing, and I think we need to look for characteristics in a new commissioner that would match that. Very appreciative of his work. I would also like a commissioner that is not threatened by other leaders and welcomes them to the table and to hear their voice and helps build up other leaders under his watch. I want a commissioner that's also in our schools and our districts, is visible and wants to be seen, has conversations with people and sits down and meets with them where they are to hear what they want in our education system. Also, Alvis spoke earlier, and I just kind of want to add to it, a commissioner that's dedicated to the equity of our students of color, of different socioeconomic status, and our students with special needs. And I'd like a commissioner that can approach those things not as if the way we've always done it, can break the status quo and look at how can we do this differently? What went well, what hasn't gone so well, and how will we approach it going forward?
Great. I haven't been keeping tabs. Have we heard from everyone?
I think Alvis now.
Alvis?
I wanted to echo what Dr. Thompson said earlier about someone who had the ability to lead macro. That is, in other words, he needs to be able to bring in. This job is too big for someone who hasn't had any experience at leading a large group of people. So it needs to be someone who's had the experience of leading a large group of people, and then being able to put together a team, because he can't do it all by himself. A team that will go down and then carry out the policies and procedures that he would like to activate. But again, it's a big job. And we sound like we're talking about Superman, and we probably are, if we get somebody who can do it all. But certainly we need someone who's already had the experience of leading a large group of people, and then incorporate some of the characteristics that we've talked about.
And thank you, Alvis. And I might tease you a little bit and just remind you it could be Superman or Superwoman.
Yeah. Wonder Woman.
And Lieutenant Governor Coleman, did you want to drill down further?
I think one of the things that I would say, and this is going to be about a 30,000-foot statement, but I want a leader in education who, sorry, my assistant's getting a little unruly, who is a servant leader, who leads by example and never forgets that at the heart of what we do is our students, and that's who we all serve.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Have we gotten comments from everyone? I think we
think
have.
so.
All right, let's just one final check. I'm going to look at each one of these areas. Can we segment those a bit? First of all, this is the statement about knowledge. You can all read that. Is there anything missing there that you think is important? Not necessarily have to do this, but I do want to give you a chance to do it. No comments on that. Let's look at the skills, which is a long list.
Rightly so.
Rightly so. Go down.
I think the redundancies are interesting there, Gene,
Yeah, they
around
are.
vision and communication and coalition
Team
building.
and,
yeah.
Good deal. All right. Dispositions. And then finally,
We had more down here.
oh, there's more.
There's a lot of those.
A lot of dispositions. Again, you can see some trends coming out of that we'll be able to pick up. And then contextual. All right, this is not your last shot at this. What we'll try to do, we as a team, I'm committing some folks here, is to take what you've given us, both in your introductory comments, and we will put this into a sort of RFP format of what we want to see in the next commissioner, and we'll feed that back to you for your consideration.
Today, right?
Today?
We wondered if we need some kind of approval of the list.
Well, you can approve this
Even
list.
as it is.
As
Yes,
it is.
perfect.
Assuming that you'll get another look at this before it goes out. I guess then that's the question on the table.
Right, so for Chair Karam, I don't know why I keep doing that today. Then if we want to move forward with the question about this as a list for approval.
I think it clearly is a very comprehensive list and that we should approve it and move forward. And I think probably the way to approve it is since it's going to be very hard to hear everybody say yay or nay, unless somebody has an objection that they want to raise. Now, let's just consider this approved and express enormous gratitude to Gene for, as we were expected, his work is pretty flawless.
One point.
Unless anybody has.
One point of clarification, Chair Karam, is that we do need, in a virtual setting, to hold a roll call vote in order to ensure that each person's response is captured.
Then let's someone.
Jennifer can call
Jennifer, are you taking the roll?
Yes, I can take a roll call. Absolutely. Let's go down the list.
Oh, we need a motion.
Okay. Yes, we need a motion first. So sorry.
So I'm going to say Lee Todd, would you want to make the motion?
Absolutely.
Alvis, would you like to second it?
Absolutely.
All right. All right. The motion's been made and seconded. Unless there's any further discussion, please call the roll.
Okay, so we've made a motion to approve this board-generated characteristics desired for the next commissioner. So we'll start with Joanne Adams.
This is Joanne Adams. I vote yes.
Great, thank you, Joanne. Claire Batt.
This is Claire Batt, yes.
Holly Bloodworth.
This is Holly Bloodworth. I vote yes.
Mike Bowling.
This is Mike Bowling. I vote yes.
Alvis Johnson,
This is Albus Johnson. I vote yes.
David Karam,
David Karam votes yes.
Patrice McCrary,
Patrice McCrary, yes.
Cody Polly Johnson is not here. Sharon Porter Robinson,
Sharon Robinson, I vote yes.
and Lee Todd.
This is Lee Todd, and I vote yes.
And this is Lou Young. I vote yes.
Oh, Lou, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I saw my name wasn't on the list.
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, and that's all of our voting members.
So the motion has been approved. Are we then now at the fourth item on the agenda,
Yes, sir.
which is the report from the RFP evaluation team on the search firm interview process? And who is speaking to that? Is it you, Lee?
Yes, it is.
Well, then the chair recognizes Lee.
All right. Well, the committee, which was Cody and Sharon were on the committee with me, the three of us, and then we had members of the staff that helped do the evaluation on the technical side and the finance side. We met on March the 4th, and we scored the technical proposals from the vendors, and we took an action to invite the top 2 scoring vendors based on their technical and cost proposals to come and provide oral presentations to our team. On March the 17th, we had to do it virtually, and we heard oral presentations by the top 2 scoring vendors and awarded scores for the oral presentation. And then we took the action to recommend that the board award a contract to the top overall scoring vendor. Before I mention who that is, thought it would be useful for you to understand the process. Too many times when you hear the highest awarded vendor, you think of price. But this case, it was fairly complex, and I was impressed with the procedure that they took us through. We scored the proposals and made a recommendation in a detailed process. It took a fair amount of time on our behalf as well as the staff's. But first, KDE evaluates the proposals to determine if the vendors meet all of the minimum requirements of the solicitation. And then you have a 3-pronged scoring procedure. First, on the technical proposal, our RFP evaluation team members reviewed the substantial information that was submitted by the vendors and scored their technical proposals, awarding points as set forth in the solicitation. The cost proposal points were awarded by the staff based on the cost proposal as provided in the solicitation. And then once we heard the oral presentation, we heard the first one and we had to score that. Then we heard the second, we had to score that. And those scores went into the final calculation of the three items, the technical proposal, the cost proposal, and oral presentation. And once we summed those up, we ultimately decided to award the top score to vendor number 2, which is Greenwood Asher. And as such, our evaluation team recommends that the KBE award a contract to Greenwood Asher to conduct the search for Kentucky's next Commissioner of Education. And for those of you that may not know, they are the ones that did the last search for Dr. Pruitt. So I hope that explanation is helpful. If you have any questions, Sharon and I can answer those for you. Cody's not here today, but I appreciate the work of the staff and helping us pull this off.
We deeply appreciate the work you all have done. I do reflect that Greenwood was selected to do the search for Stephen, but they also lead the search for Terry Holliday. So they have a strong background. Are there any questions to Lee on this? Seeing no questions to Lee, the next item would be then selection of the firm to conduct the commissioner search. And that's an action item, which would require a motion and a second. Lou, did you want to make the motion?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Sharon Porter Robinson, did you want to second that motion?
Yes, I would. Thank you. A second.
Just for
All right, the
clarification for our
motion has
notes.
been-
Just a moment,
Just
Chair.
for clarification for our notes, Dr. Young, your motion is to approve the committee's recommendation to award a contract to Greenwood Asher for the search for the next commissioner.
Correct. That is the motion.
That is exactly what we meant. So we need then a roll call on this, and Jennifer, please, we have a motion, it's been properly made and seconded, and there's, seeing no other discussion, please call the roll.
Yes. Joanne Adams.
This is Joanne Adams, and I vote yes.
Claire Batt.
Claire Batt votes yes.
Holly Bloodworth.
Holly Bloodworth, yes.
Mike Bowling.
This is Mike Bowling. I vote yes.
Alvis Johnson.
Al Johnson, I vote yes.
David Karam.
Votes yes.
Patrice McCrary.
I vote yes, Patrice McCrary, and thank you, team, for your hard work.
Cody Polly Johnson is not here. Sharon Porter Robinson.
I vote yes.
Lee Todd.
This is Lee Todd, and I vote yes.
And Lou Young.
With thanks to the committee, Lou Young votes yes.
Okay, thank you to everyone. That's all of our voting members. So Chair Karam, I think the next agenda item, which is always a favorite, in this case, it might be a little bit of an interesting one as members are virtual. So it's that of lunch. I suppose it's a good way to practice social distancing while we eat, right? We can all enjoy lunch while we're not conducting business. So if that's okay, Chair Karam, I think we'll let you announce that.
And you're muted, Chair Karam.
So are we going to move, Jennifer, are we moving over the lunch thing? Or are you seriously thinking, are we supposed to be taking a break for lunch? Coming
Yes,
back.
so I defer to you, but on our agenda, we've got time dedicated as a break for lunch for those members there, and certainly virtually as well.
Well, then I'm looking, I guess, for Kevin to give us some enlightenment on whether we should continue to move forward, or do you want to take a break?
Because we've advertised, we'll come back at 12:15. I think we need to just break now and then come back at 12:15, just so folks know that in case they were not going to join us until the afternoon, they don't miss anything. Todd, you agree with that?
Yes, that is correct.
So I recommend we break now, and that'll give us about 15 minutes more than originally scheduled for lunch, and then reconvene at 12:15.
So the board will stand at 12:15. Thank you. Thank everyone for their participation this morning.
Thank you, Chair Karam. See everyone at 12:15.
What are we doing?
Jennifer? Jennifer? Oh, thank you. Jennifer? Lieutenant Governor Coleman is going to be a little bit late coming back, but she will be back.
Okay, thank you, Lou. Are we ready to call the meeting back to order?
Yes, everything's good here.
Okay, sounds great. Chair Karam, I'll hand it over to you.
All right, we will call the meeting of the Kentucky Board of Education back to order. And we'll go to item number 7, which is the presentation from the selected search firm. And as I understand it, Betty Asher is here with us now. And so, Betty, is this the Betty that I know?
Dave, this is the Betty that you know, absolutely. It's a pleasure to work with you again.
The Betty that I've worked with on 2 other searches?
Correct.
So your challenge is you brought us Terry Holliday and Stephen Pruitt, and now see if you can even improve on that, because they were both darn near perfect.
Oh, wonderful. I promise you, we're going to do everything we can to bring you that extraordinary commissioner that Jean spoke about this morning.
So the floor is yours, Betty, and after your presentation, we'll see if members have any questions.
Well, first of all, we are so excited to be your partner in this search. It's a little bit of sunshine for us in these stressful times. As we told the review committee yesterday, we've watched the improvements that Kentucky has been making in education for many years. I remember particularly when Kentucky was in a little bit more prosperity and going back to Governor Patton's days. So it's something that I'm very proud of to say that I have watched with great fondness and with great affection. I do want you to know that we approach this as a partnership. As Todd talked this morning, it's really important to us that we are open to listening and having dialogue with everybody across the state, as you have already begun. A little bit about us. We are a search firm who specializes in education only. We don't have a corporate arm. Our corporate headquarters are, in fact, in Northwest Florida, but we do have a presence in the Washington, D.C. area as well. We have about 40 people who work with us, but effectively you are looking at your search leaders here, Betty Asher and Suzanne Griffin. While we do have 40 people working in the firm, you will have a dedicated team of 4 that will be a researcher who will work with us, and we will also choose one of our senior consultants based upon their workload to be our 4th partner here. But we can effectively leverage the resources of all of the 40 people whom we have. A little bit about me personally. Some of you know I'm a product of the educational Kentucky system. K through 12, I have 2 degrees from Kentucky universities, and I have a degree from the University of Cincinnati. As many of you know, that's almost Kentucky. I am a product of what education can do and how it can open up the world to people. I grew up in Eastern Kentucky and never dreamed that I would have the life that I have today. And I attribute it to my good instructors and the good counseling advice that I had from my educators along the way. I've also been in the classroom in Kentucky. I started my career many years ago teaching high school English at the Union County High School. Let me introduce my colleague, Suzanne Griffin, also.
So nice to meet you. I want to let you all know that we were watching the work that you were doing this morning and very impressed. Obviously a great start in identifying those individual or the characteristics that you want in your next commissioner. And when it was announced that Greenwood Asher was selected, there was a lot of hooping and hollering on this end, just so that you know, we're thrilled to be your partner. My name is Suzanne Griffin. I have been a lifelong educator. As an individual, have a real passion for leadership and learning. I started my career in Minnesota and started as a special education teacher in speech and language pathology. Also did some long periods of time in interim roles as a teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing, as well as a teacher for emotionally behaviorally disordered students. And then because of my experience, moved into the principalship and was in the principalship for about 12 years. Loved that job, one of my favorite jobs in the world. I got to interface with teachers on a regular basis who were making profound difference in the lives of students. Then I moved into district level office positions, worked in school accountability, and also worked in school improvement and redesign, and ultimately held a superintendent's role in the state of Georgia, and then returned back to Minnesota, where my most recent educational position was as the chief academic officer for the Minneapolis Public Schools. So a long career in education. I landed with Greenwood Asher because of my passion for leadership and my passion for making a good match with leaders in educational organizations. I truly believe education is how we're going to change the world. And so the opportunity to partner with you is just beyond what I can even imagine. I do want to let you know that as a firm, and certainly your team here is committed to bringing you a highly qualified, diverse pool of candidates that you will have the opportunity to select from. We're committed to diversity both as a firm in our own hiring practices, because we believe that the diverse backgrounds, experiences, perspectives that people bring are critical to making good decisions. So you can be guaranteed of that. And we also have a passion for learning. So working with you, we're going to have a great opportunity to learn more than we already know about Kentucky and about your needs, and to be able to make a strong match for you in your next commissioner.
As Susan said, you all have a great start. Thank Gene for his work this morning. Thank him for his continued service to Kentucky. Thank the staff for all the good work that they have done to give us some good work that we can begin to put our working papers together with. And the thing we love the most is our ability to message to people who we're going to be talking about how committed this board is to every child in the Commonwealth. And we stand ready to get started.
Well, we appreciate, is there anything, I'm sorry, Betty, anything else?
We're good.
All right. Well, I do want to just reiterate that I have worked with both of these two young individuals before in two searches, and they are the consummate professionals. I didn't realize at all that one of you, Betty, is a University of Cincinnati graduate. That made it even better, since my undergraduate degree was from the University of Cincinnati. I forgot about that from our time together.
We might have been in the same classes.
Go Bearcats. Is there any member of the board have any questions or comments for the team?
Chair Karam, this is Lou. May I ask a question?
Of course.
So, ladies, thank you so much, and I apologize for the weightiness of this question, but I would like to hear you guys talk about, at this point in time, with coronavirus and global pandemic, for practical purposes, what does that bear in terms of our moving ahead with the search? Have you thought about the implications of our current reality?
We are currently working with other organizations, other institutions on searches. We certainly, with the coronavirus, most recently, there's been some challenges with recruiting just because people have been in meetings as information has changed hour to hour to hour. But we are continuing to get responses for open positions. We just have to work a little bit harder. We're doing much of our work online, holding meetings remotely, and doing interviews remotely. And that has worked very well for us. We are moving into some community forums and doing actually some community forums with final candidates for searches electronically as well. So it is not the same as we've done in the past, but we're finding it to be just as effective. So I think we'll be able to move forward. Certainly we'll keep in touch with the chairs of the committee and let them know if there are any challenges with recruiting or if there are any questions coming up from candidates that might make us want to review the process of the search.
And are there any indicators or metrics that you would be following, either positive ones or negative ones, that might indicate that we should push pause?
I think a lot of it for you will be, us in communication with you about the development of the pool. That really is the most critical thing. If we get high quality candidates who are engaged and willing to move forward with the process, then I think we certainly can, present everything that you need in regards to gathering information. So it really is going to be about the development of the pool.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me reiterate something to the team. It's important for you to understand that while we certainly want to move expeditiously, we also want to make sure that we do this properly and take the appropriate amount of time. And we're assured that our interim commissioner is good to stay the course. And so that's a critical thing for the team to understand. And you all have had some experience with Kevin, but it's just, as people said in the meeting earlier this morning, is we could not be luckier that he is at the helm at this time. He's a young man with great integrity and complete devotion to public education, which is wonderful. So you have the assurance that while we want to do it appropriately, we also will take the time, especially given the dynamic of what's going on in the country right now.
Thank you, David. That was exactly the reassurance I was looking for.
And please know also that should we want to have some small group meetings practicing social distancing, we can certainly drive to Frankfurt to meet with you or elsewhere as well. So it's not like we're having to get on an airplane these days.
Very good.
David, if I may, this is Kevin.
Find somebody like you.
I
was impressed with your background. So get us somebody like you, okay?
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Alvis. Kevin, anything you want to jump in here on with regard to
yes.
the search? And
I hope Dr. Polio wasn't listening about possibly me being here longer, but I am willing to serve however needed, and the board needs to have a robust search, and that's exactly what you all are going to do. So I did have a clarifying question for the search team. When I've been out talking to superintendents and co-ops, questions come up about the search, and so my talking points have been reiterating what I believe to be the 3 ways that candidates are generated into the pool, and I want to make sure you all clarify for me that that's accurate. And when we're talking to folks, they're very interested. They don't realize that's how the searches have occurred in the past. And basically the 3 ways that I describe are, of course, someone can apply on their own, someone can be nominated, which is how I think Dr. Pruitt arrived. He didn't apply, but someone, or maybe more than one, nominated him. And then 3, for lack of a better term, The search firm also has the ability to kind of go out and headhunt individuals that may not come through application or nomination, but that the search firm knows exhibit the characteristics the board's looking for, and so then they get asked to be in the pool, and that's how we generate the pool. And I think that's good for this board to understand that that's at least my impression of how it's been done in the past. Can you all comment on if that is in fact the case of how candidates are generated into the pool?
Kevin, that is absolutely the way candidates come to us. As you know, we will be posting ads into the most widely read venues that educators look at. We'll have some people that will come as a result of that ad. We are very aggressive in our outreach. They're meaning, of course, that we are going to be calling people around the country. We're going to be calling a lot of sources, getting other people's advice for nominations. It's a very common way. We'll probably, before the search is over, talk with every commissioner in the country to see if they can identify for us people whom they think are ready to take on the challenges and the opportunities in Kentucky. As I said, I'm hoping too that we'll have an opportunity to visit with most of your partners within the state to seek nominations from them, whether those are school board members or others. And as I said, we are trying to attract people who are not necessarily looking for an opportunity. So our outreach becomes very, very important to the effectiveness of the search. So you're absolutely correct.
Thank you, Kevin. I do want to add on a lighter note, and that the search team will remember this. You will get, for those people who've not been through a search, for the board members who've not been through a search like this, you will get some interesting applications that will be intriguing. I absolutely recall a prison guard, and I believe it was in the Pruitt search that applied, and you'll get some fun. That person may have thought discipline was the #1 issue, but you'll get some interesting applications, and the team presents you in a very comprehensive and easy to understand form the various applications and weights them and helps you through the selection process. So it's a super team. Anybody else have anything else? If not, thanks.
Chairman Karam, I have a question. This is Claire Matt.
Sure.
I have had several legislators comment to me that they feel that the way our former commissioner left might prevent us from having a successful search for the very best candidate. Would you care to comment on your thoughts about that? Because that may be a question that's going around, and it might help alleviate some of the fears people have about the quality of individuals that we will be considering.
I can say that it is a question that we will get. We will certainly need to explain it away as we're talking with people. But I don't believe that that is in any way going to be a negative impact on our recruitment. People are going to be interested in this opportunity because of its mission and because of its focus. It's going to be interested in the opportunity because of its geography. There was a time when Kentucky was actually leading in reform in K through 12, and many people are going to remember those days, and they're going to want to build and continue, that trajectory. So I think the position in itself is going to be adequate enough to help us attract a great pool for you. And no, I don't see that as being a major issue, but it will be a question we'll need to explain.
I also want to just make a comment. Both Betty and I actually commented on this after listening to your meeting this morning. Another reason that people are going to be interested in this position is because of this board. Listening to the comments that you all made this morning as a former educator, as an individual who may have looked at a position like this in my former life, the way you're talking about students, the way you're talking about improvement, the way you're working together and interacting in a really respectful way, the supportive way you talk about your teachers, the supportive way you talk about your interim commissioner, your past commissioners, that is fantastic for recruiting. When they believe that they're going to be working with a board that is mission-minded and that is process-oriented, that is a fantastic place to be.
David, Mike Bowling.
Go for it, Mike.
I wanted to just point out, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I think our people that are searching need to understand that until the Senate confirms our positions, and they have to April the 15th to confirm our positions, that once the session is over and we're not confirmed, then none of us will be serving on the board any longer. And I say that because obviously the legislature is just dealing with the budget primarily right now and not a whole lot other. But it's not so much that Stivers is going to pass a bill to just do away with the board. Our problem is we have to be confirmed by the Senate by the 15th of April. And that's the reality. That's the reality of what we're facing.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'd like to get Kevin to talk about this a little bit. What do you think, Kevin, is the status, and is there capacity for the governor to come back in and reorganize if at the end of the session there is no confirmation? Number one, and then number two, going back to the issue of making sure people understand the situation. One very positive thing is we are in just months of a brand new governor. Mm-hmm. So that new governor has more than 3.5 years, which is very helpful. So maybe Kevin addressing those points.
Sure. In the governor's press conference yesterday about COVID-19, he mentioned there's some discussions going on whether or not the General Assembly should go ahead and go home right now. And the governor, of course, that's the General Assembly's decision, but the governor encouraged the General Assembly of one of two options to either go on and adjourn, and then he would call them back to deal with the budget and other COVID-19 issues, or to pass a budget now and then go home. And so it's not clear. I think the General Assembly's indicated they're going to stay in, I think, until the 15th. But that's just some background information. Those discussions are going on. The good news, though, is that we will know very early on into the search, being April 15th, when the General Assembly has to go home, whether or not the General Assembly has confirmed the members, or there's a current bill pending, Senate Bill 10. There's a floor amendment filed to Senate Bill 10 that we were reviewing this morning that would allow the members, as I read it, to stay on through July 1st, and then I think would be eligible for reappointment, and allows the ex officio members to stay on till July 1st, but would take those off. So that's an amended different way, or some changes to the proposal for Senate Bill 10. So I'm sure those things are being discussed, and I'm also confident that the governor's office and their legal counsel are prepared.
And Kevin, the lieutenant governor, has rejoined us.
And so, and as I said, the good news is the General Assembly adjourns per the Constitution if they don't go home before then on April 15th, and that is very, very early in the search, which is good. And I would defer to the Lieutenant Governor if she has any comments on that. And I don't know if she heard the question. The question, Lieutenant Governor, is about whether or not with the board members, their confirmations pending, how that might affect the search moving forward.
Well, I think it goes without saying that any amount of uncertainty is going to affect this process for sure. As many of you know, I have been very vocal with my pen, writing op-eds across the state about the qualifications of this board being unmatched, and our commitment to public education being unmatched, and those are the qualifications that should matter for a board. So I will continue to advocate for us, as I know many of you will, because I do believe that this is what's best for the kids in Kentucky. So this process is, it's going to be, we don't know what the legislature is going to do. And so while this may have been taken up in the Senate, there's a chance that it won't make it through the House before the legislature goes home. So we'll kind of have to just follow the process and see, and kind of keep our eyes on the ball, which is a little bit more difficult with the Capitol being closed, but we'll do our best to help keep you informed and welcome your advocacy for kids, because that's a big part of the reason why you're here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Very good. Anyone else? Again, search team, thank you for being willing to come back into the Commonwealth. We're very fortunate.
We're very delighted. Thank you. Thank you all.
Then we move to another item agenda, and that is action to waive certain requirements of 701 KAR 5:150 to permit emergency application and approval of non-traditional instruction program. Kevin, are you handling this?
We have Associate Commissioner Kelly Foster here, and then Division Director David Cook will be coming to the table. And bear with us as they try to socially distance appropriately.
Where's the pipe? Good afternoon. This is Kelly Foster. How are you all?
We're muted.
Okay.
We're muted. We're muted.
So we are bringing a waiver to you this afternoon, and I'm actually going to let David Cook kind of walk you through it. He is one of the directors in my office that oversees the NTI program. He can kind of give you a little bit of history about what we like to call veteran NTI districts, and then in the last 7 to 10 days, we have lots of school districts. Now I believe we got our final application in this morning. So 172 out of 172 districts have applied for the non-traditional instruction. So that's a real positive for what's going on in our nation to help our kids still try to receive educational services from home. So at this time, I'll turn it over to David.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to be with you virtually. So the waiver we're bringing to you today is essentially the last piece in the puzzle to get all these districts ready to provide their NTI services to their students. The waiver is the gist of the waiver is primarily focused around an application requirement that exists in the regulation that in order to apply for NTI, you have to apply 120 days before your school year starts. So you're being asked to waive that requirement for the 89 school districts that weren't in the program prior to last week. There's a few other sections which kind of tie to that, which are about in order to do this and to do it both efficiently but effectively, we created a modified application for the program for this emergency time. This is only valid for the balance of this school year. We will have to deal with anything that comes after that when it happens, but this is for the balance of this school year, and it provides those 89 districts with the same cover as the other districts have that the regulation provides. So, as Kelly said, we are in the 9th year of non-traditional instruction in Kentucky. The program began in 2011 as a pilot, and it grew from a pilot of a couple of districts to the 83 that she mentioned we had starting this school year. Many of those districts have actually already used most of their days for flu-related situations. As you know, we'd had a very, very mild winter, so very few people had missed days, NTI days for weather. But the law and the regulation allow, as this is the case we're going into right now, for health reasons. So quite a few of our districts have already spent many of their NTI days, and they have been an invaluable service to the new districts in providing support and answering questions. We've been answering a lot of questions, but I've had my rock stars out there in the field answering questions for us as well. So I'll answer any questions that you have about the waiver, but basically after the waiver is discussed and you all take your vote, that, as I said, is the last piece to 172 applications have been reviewed and approved as of this morning.
And I would just add to this, even though we're meeting today, for the districts that are coming under NTI in this emergency time, this would be retroactive back to March the 10th. So any days that their school system has been closed and they implemented their NTI plan, those days would count as actual NTI days.
And if I may, I made the leap of faith, not to influence your vote, but I made the leap of faith and we did here at the department, to tell districts that we felt pretty confident that this board would understand this scenario. We had to make a decision on the fly because people were making plans, as you all know, as this issue developed and changed overnight. We needed to give districts some clarity and some guidance that they could, in fact, rely on NTI days through this emergency waiver process and go ahead and rely on that even before the board met today. So we went out on a limb a little bit, but we felt like it was the right thing to do.
Just for clarification also, I think your staff note indicates what is being requested is a waiver that's retroactive. So for the board to back up and make that effective beginning, when
March
is it?
10th.
March 10th. March 10th.
And I would just like to.
All right.
Oh, go ahead.
David,
I think he stopped.
Alvis has a question.
how many days will the school district be approved for NTI?
Yes, sir. So the program by statute, Alvis, the program by statute is 10 days. So all of the emergency districts will have 10 days, but Kevin, you want to respond to that too?
This has been the week of going out on limbs. So the statute says that a district can't have more than 10 days. However, we know, as David explained, we already have districts, even though we've had a mild winter, they have had some winter weather or ice and or flu, and so they are approaching 10 days even before COVID-19. And so we've, on the limb again, told districts that we believe there was sufficient support in the General Assembly because there's a bill, an amendment to a bill that would give 10 extra days for a total of 20. Or if the General Assembly does not act, the governor has been very clear that he's willing to do what's necessary in many areas, including education, through executive order when the General Assembly's not in session to do what we need to do to to educate kids, basically. And so the governor would add 20 or more days to being permissible. And again, that's not subject. This board can't add the 20 days or add 10 on to the 10 because those are in statute, and this board only has authority to waive your regulatory authority, your regulations, not the General Assembly statute. So it's a difference there, but we feel very comfortable that, and we told districts to go ahead and operate as if you had 20 days of permitted NTI days, and if we move forward and we believe in working with the governor's office and this board and other partners, if we think we need more than that, we'll be discussing that as well.
David, this is clear that. I just would like to ask a question, please.
Sure. Please go ahead.
I've heard that Fayette County has not yet filed theirs, and I believe their NTI application has to be approved by the board this coming Monday night. So would they be covered by our decision as well?
Yes, they will. They submitted their application actually this morning, and it has been reviewed and conditionally approved based on this decision that you all are making and the subsequent receipt of their signatures of their board chair and the superintendent. So the application meets muster. We're just going to conditionally approve it based on getting those signatures.
Patrice McCrary, I have a question, please.
Go right ahead.
The application process, should it happen that we have to extend our days, do the districts have to do anything else, or is that just an automatic extension?
I was just going to say that we would, in cases like that where something like this has occurred, we may ask the superintendent just to send us an email requesting that they want the additional days, but we're not going to, they don't have to amend their application or anything like that. They're simply going to, we may, just for record keeping purposes, ask for an email from the superintendent saying, yes, I want the other 10 days, but that's probably all we'll do.
Thank you.
Very good. This is Aldous again. My question is, with the NTI days, do students all over our state have the ability to really to access the computer and internet to carry out the assignments they're given? Can anybody answer that question for me?
Oh, yeah.
Sure. So I'll start off with that, and David may want to add some additional details. So it looks different across our state. I am extremely impressed with the districts that have just joined this program in the last 7 to 10 days. A lot of districts have the one-to-one devices, and where they already have things set up to do through Google Classroom or different online activities, but we also have districts that may not have that capability, and so teachers have been coming into their buildings and preparing lessons that they send home in NTI packets. We also have our districts serving food to our students 2 meals a day right now, so we are seeing in many districts where the school buses are going out to different areas in the community, and not only are they providing meals, but they are also delivering the schoolwork, the NTI packets for students to complete. Many teachers have created Twitter pages, Facebook pages, where they are communicating with students daily. We have many, I just saw something posted a few minutes ago that talked about a parent who had received a call from their school nurse as well from their teacher today, just to ensure that their kids were okay and had everything they needed to complete their lessons. So I think we are seeing some amazing things across the state right now as our educators really try to ensure that our students are receiving instruction while they're at home in this tough situation. So it looks a little different from county to county, district to district, but I think everyone is trying extremely hard to provide services to the kids.
And I will add just briefly, Alvis, I think, and I don't have David Couch in the room to say what the number is, but our access point is pretty high in Kentucky. It's in the 80s somewhere about the kids who have access. But thankfully, we have wonderful partners like Spectrum Charter and other providers of internet services who are stopping charging for those services for folks who have children in the homes. So we're going to hopefully see an increase in access points for kids too as well. And Kelly's absolutely right. It's a daily wonderful experience to see all the things people are doing, and they're cognizant of the fact that some kids don't have access, and they're providing equally as rigorous lessons to those kids on paper as they would be in digital formats. And lastly, real quickly, because she's sitting somewhere behind me, is Tony. This is another great opportunity for us to share the hashtag, which was created by our communications office, MyNTIKY. And please, when you see stuff on your Twitter feeds or your other social media that's coming from folks in your part of the state that are doing great things, when you retweet it or you share it, put that hashtag in there, because it lets the rest of the state know about it too.
All right. Any other question or comment? Seeing none, we'll need to have a motion to permit this emergency application and approval of non-traditional instruction programs.
Motion made by Mike Bowling.
Mike Bowling has made the motion, seconded by
I second. Holly Bloodworth.
Holly Bloodworth has seconded the motion. Hearing no further discussion, since we have to have a roll call, Jennifer, will you please call the roll on this adoption of this motion?
Absolutely. Joanne Adams.
Joanne Adams votes yes.
Claire Batt.
Claire Batt votes yes.
Holly Bloodworth.
Holly Bloodworth votes yes.
Mike Bowling.
Mike Bowling votes yes.
Alvis Johnson.
Elvis Johnson votes yes.
David Karam.
Need to unmute, Mr. Chair.
David Karam votes yes.
Great. Okay, Patrice McCrary.
Patrice McCrary votes yes.
Okay, and Cody Polly Johnson is not present, so Sharon Porter Robinson.
Sharon Robinson votes yes.
Lee Todd.
Lee Todd votes yes.
And Lou Young.
Lou Young votes yes.
Okay, Chair, that's all of our voting members. Thank you.
Motion has been unanimously approved. The next
Thank you.
item on the agenda. Next item on the agenda is internal board business. This is a discussion and approval to amend the date and location of the April 8th, 2020 Awards Committee meeting, the April 8th, 2020 special board meeting, and the April 9th, 2020 regular meeting locations to 300 Soar Boulevard, State Boardroom 514, Frankfort, Kentucky. This is an action discussion item. Either Kevin or Jennifer, who is going to handle this one?
I'm happy to discuss, or Kevin, I'll defer to you.
We're basically we asked you to change your board meeting to Lexington for the STLP Championship several weeks ago. We're now changing it back to Frankfort because the STLP Championships, unfortunately, have been canceled due to the ongoing COVID-19 situation. So it's just returning you back. If this motion is approved, it would be returning you back to your normal schedule of having the board meeting on April 9th, back here in Frankfort at the State Boardroom.
Any discussion or questions? Then I will need a motion to approve that.
Motion to approve.
Mike has made a motion to approve. I need a second.
Second the motion, Albus.
Albus has seconded. Seeing no, is there any other discussion on that one at all? Seeing no other discussion, I would ask Jennifer to take a roll call vote on the motion to change the meeting back to the state boardroom.
Gladly. I'm getting good at this. Here we go. Joanne Adams. She's not muted, but we'll come back. Claire Batt.
Claire Batt says yes.
Great. Holly Bloodworth.
Holly Bloodworth, yes.
Alvis Johnson.
Yes.
Oh, I think I skipped over. I'm so sorry. See, I just jinxed myself. I said I was getting good at this and I was wrong. Mike Bowling. Did I say Mike Bowling? I didn't.
Mike Bowling says yes.
Thank you, Mike. Sorry about that. David Karam.
Yes.
Patrice McCrary.
Patrice McCrary, yes.
Okay. And Cody Polly Johnson's not here. Sharon Robinson.
Yes.
Lee Todd.
Yes.
Lou Young.
Lou Young, yes.
And we'll go back to Joanne Adams one more time, just in case. Okay, for some reason we can't hear her, but that's all of our voting members. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The motion is approved. Let me ask Kevin. Kevin, is there anything else we need to be bringing up or discussing?
There are no more items. Obviously, we'll continue to provide you any informational email updates regarding the COVID-19 issue. KDE leadership team will be meeting virtually at least 3 times a week during this time, so we can get good information and guidance to districts, and then we'll obviously be communicating with you about the April 9th meeting.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Before we adjourn, I want to reiterate, and I think the board is 100% in agreement, that Kevin and your team have been unbelievably wonderful through this process. I don't think when you signed on to be interim commissioner, you had planned on a virus that spread all the way across the country and has affected everything that we all have to do. So please make sure that you understand how much the board appreciates all you and the team do, and make sure on behalf of the board you communicate that to the whole team. We really appreciate your service and your newfound sense of humor.
Thank you, Dave. David, when you asked me to do this, and I did go back and look at the fine print on that MOA, and it was not in there, but one of the reasons that I agreed to come do this was I knew the team that I would inherit, and that's made all the difference. And I can't say they're just wonderful. It's a great team. So, and that goes for everybody here at the department, not just the leadership team. So it's an amazing place to be.
Well, and we also extend our additional appreciations, Kevin, to your understanding and willingness to hang in there in case the search requires a bit more time than we had initially anticipated. If there is no other business, then there's needed a motion to adjourn. Mike Bowling, would you want to move that we adjourn?
I would love to move that we adjourn.
I need a second to that motion. Patrice, would you be willing to make a motion, second the motion?
Most certainly, I second that motion.
And motions for adjournment are not discussable. Therefore, I need a roll call on the motion which has been made and properly seconded. Jennifer.
Okay, Joanne Adams.
Joanne Adams votes yes.
Great to hear from you. Claire Batt.
Claire Batt votes yes too.
Okay, Holly Bloodworth.
Holly Bloodworth votes yes.
Mike Bowling.
Mike Bowling votes yes.
Alvis Johnson.
Elvis Johnson votes yes.
David Karam.
Votes yes.
Patrice McCrary.
Patrice votes yes.
Okay, Cody Polly Johnson's not present. Sharon Porter Robinson.
Yes.
Lee Todd.
Lee Todd, yes.
And Lou Young.
Lou Young, yes.
Okay, thank you, Chair. That's all of your non-voting members. And as usual, you've gotten us out at an unprecedented record and are letting us go early. We appreciate you.
Well, we thank everybody on the board for their participation and for the patience and understanding how challenged the chairman is with technology. Fortunately, the chairman has a son who is really good at technology and teaches computer issues at the University of Louisville. So I was able to enlist him when I desperately needed it. So the motion's been approved and we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.